Plato Quotes. Ignorance, the root and stem of all evil. There is no harm in repeating a good thing. Science is nothing but perception. No evil can happen to a good man, either in life or after death. We ought to esteem it of the greatest importance that the fictions which children first hear should be adapted in the most perfect manner to the promotion of virtue. Wise men speak because they have something to say, fools because they have to say something. The direction in which education starts a man will determine his future in life. All men are by nature equal, made all of the same earth by one workman, and however we deceive ourselves, as dear unto God is the poor peasant as the mighty prince. Love is a serious mental disease. The greatest wealth is to live content with little, thinking the talking of the soul with itself. He who is not a good servant will not be a good master. How can you prove whether at this moment we are sleeping, and all our thoughts are a dream, or whether we are awake, and talking to one another in the waking state? Any man may easily do harm, but not every man can do good to another. Truth is the beginning of every good to the gods, and of every good to man. Astronomy compels the soul to look upwards and leads us from this world to another. He who commits injustice is ever made more wretched than he who suffers it. He who is of calm and happy nature will hardly feel the pressure of age, but to him who is of an opposite disposition youth and age are equally a burden. When there is an income tax, the just man will pay more and the unjust less on the same amount of income. Wisdom alone is the science of other sciences. And what, Socrates, is the food of the soul? Surely, I said, knowledge is the food of the soul. Man is a wingless animal with 2 feet and flat nails. We ought to fly away from earth to heaven as quickly as we can, and to fly away is to become like God, as far as this is possible, and to become like Him is to become holy, just, and wise. No man should bring children into the world who is unwilling to persevere to the end in their nature and education. The beginning is the most important part of the work. I have hardly ever known a mathematician who was capable of reasoning. The community which has neither poverty nor riches will always have the noblest principles. Opinion is the medium between knowledge and ignorance. Then not only an old man, but also a drunkard, becomes a second time a child. Philosophy is the highest music. No one is a friend to his friend who does not love in return. We do not learn, and what we call learning is only a process of recollection. The curse of me and my nation is that we always think things can be bettered by immediate action of some sort, any sort rather than no sort. A being in search of meaning. All things will be produced in superior quantity and quality, and with greater ease, when each man works at a single occupation, in accordance with his natural gifts, and at the right moment, without meddling with anything else. The highest reach of injustice is to be deemed just when you are not. This city is what it is because our citizens are what they are. To prefer evil to good is not in human nature. And when a man is compelled to choose one of 2 evils, no one will choose the greater when he might have the less. Honesty is for the most part less profitable than dishonesty. Good people do not need laws to tell them to act responsibly, while bad people will find a way around the laws. He was a wise man who invented beer. There's a victory, and defeat, the first and best of victories, the lowest and worst of defeats which each man gains or sustains at the hands not of another, but of himself. When the tyrant has disposed of foreign enemies by conquest or treaty, and there is nothing more to fear from them, then he is always stirring up some war or other, in order that the people may require a leader. Wonder is the feeling of the philosopher, and philosophy begins in wonder. Your silence gives consent. Death is not the worst that can happen to men. Entire ignorance is not so terrible or extreme an evil, and is far from being the greatest of all. too much cleverness and too much learning, accompanied with ill bringing up, are far more fatal. When men speak ill of thee, live so as nobody may believe them. We are twice armed if we fight with faith. Attention to health is life's greatest hindrance. Good actions give strength to ourselves and inspire good actions in others. They certainly give very strange names to diseases. He who steals a little steals with the same wish as he who steals much, but with less power. Knowledge without justice ought to be called cunning rather than wisdom. The measure of a man is what he does with power. Music is a moral law. It gives soul to the universe, wings to the mind, flight to the imagination, and charm and gaiety to life and to everything. A good decision is based on knowledge and not on numbers. The first and greatest victory is to conquer yourself. To be conquered by yourself is of all things most shameful and vile. The blame is his who chooses God is blameless. Nothing can be more absurd than the practice that prevails in our country of men and women not following the same pursuits with all their strengths and with one mind, for thus, the state instead of being whole is reduced to half. Virtue is relative to the actions and ages of each of us in all that we do. Better a little which is well done, than a great deal imperfectly. For the introduction of a new kind of music must be shunned as imperiling the whole state, since styles of music are never disturbed without affecting the most important political institutions. We can easily forgive a child who is afraid of the dark. The real tragedy of life is when men are afraid of the light. No law or ordinance is mightier than understanding. Apply yourself both now and in the next life. Without effort, you cannot be prosperous. Though the land be good, you cannot have an abundant crop without cultivation. Music is the movement of sound to reach the soul for the education of its virtue. I never did anything worth doing by accident, nor did any of my inventions come by accident. They came by work. The punishment which the wise suffer who refuse to take part in the government, is to live under the government of worse men. If particulars are to have meaning, there must be universals. It is a common saying, and in everybody's mouth, that life is but a sojourn. It is clear to everyone that astronomy at all events compels the soul to look upwards, and draws it from the things of this world to the other. There are three classes of men: lovers of wisdom, lovers of honor, and lovers of gain. There are two things a person should never be angry at: what they can help, and what they cannot. There will be no end to the troubles of states, or of humanity itself, till philosophers become kings in this world, or till those we now call kings and rulers really and truly become philosophers, and political power and philosophy thus come into the same hands. People are like dirt. They can either nourish you and help you grow as a person, or they can stunt your growth and make you wilt and die. Poets utter great and wise things which they do not themselves understand. There is no such thing as a lover's oath. The wisest have the most authority. If a man neglects education, he walks lame to the end of his life. Ignorance of all things is an evil neither terrible nor excessive, nor yet the greatest of all, but great cleverness and much learning, if they be accompanied by a bad training, are a much greater misfortune.